Good evening, Monrovia.
Central Avenue begin to dry up.
Okay, what happens?
And then once you get into it.
Welcome to the show known as Talk TV. The sweltering heat of Monrovia is hovering all over us, believe it or not. What are some of the things that's been going on since the last time you tuned in and you watched Talk TV? Okay, couch potatoes. Those individuals out there surfing with that what's on, stop for a moment. Let's see what's been going on in the news. How about this guy right here? He has the look of a champion. And why? It was the San Antonio Spurs that bumped off the New York Knicks, okay? All right, this picture probably is, who got the job? Inquiring minds want to know. Will it be the West Coast Bulls under Phil Jackson, or will it be Kurt Rambis one more time? Well, who knows? He may be saying in the future that I didn't promise you a championship. I just said I'd take over the job. All right. Now, this made me a little nervous. You know, they had the Olympic Games for the police officers across the United States taking place in Pasadena. They tell me that Chief Joe Santoro plays a mean game of pool. All right, guys, let's hear it for the women out there. The men couldn't do it in 94. You think the women will do it in 99? I'm pretty sure they will. That's for the cup game. Soccer, it's a sport. All right, are you planning a trip to Yosemite? You better check out everything first. Don't forget there was a flood there in 97, and I don't think they have it all together yet. Guess what? The war is over in Kosovo. At least that's what our politicians are telling us. And Bill Clinton, he must be telling another one of those fabulous stories. You know, all the talk about the building in the foothills, population explosion. You can guarantee someone's going to live in those foothills, and it won't be just bears and wolves and coyotes and things of that nature. It's going to be people, believe it or not. But how we control it will be a very important thing in future development. Okay, they have a new president in South Africa, in case you didn't know. And then what big shoes to fill, okay? Then it makes me wonder, let me see, South Africa has elected 2 presidents that happen to be black. We are a relatively young country, and we still are challenged when people of color or women say they will seek the office of the presidency. Maybe we need to catch up in time. All right, you know, graduations are crazy. Some of the looks of graduation. This guy must have worked pretty hard to pull this one off. You know, jail. What jail can do to hair, okay? 4 hard years of hard work, why not express yourself? Okay. And Monrovia wasn't left out of the picture either. Okay, Lucas Knudsen. at Monrovia High. He did it in a nice style. All right, then the local guy that I know, Michael Monzon, at Bosco Tech, he did it his kind of a way, or maybe someone did it to him, okay? But one thing these guys all did, and that was graduate. Parents are proud. Hey, it was Soul Day out in the park. Did you know that? As old school showed up, mad. Monrovia, Arcadian Duarte, sort of like a school reunion back in the days when there was only one high school. Good to come back and see old friends. All right, still trying to figure out how come we don't have enough for young people in Monrovia. Skaters Park. They have a great one in San Dimas. Why can't we have one in Monrovia? The young folks want to know. I'm pretty sure they want to know. All right. Another raging debate that's taking place is, should they have the Ten Commandments posted in public high schools? I didn't say religious schools. I said public high schools. I think, why are we always forcing the schools to take over something that the parents should do? Maybe you ought to post the Ten Commandments in a home and then explain, and so when people go to school, they know what to do. All right. I don't know how many of you viewers out there get bent out of shape every time one of these big giant vehicles come rearing next to you. But one thing this article didn't mention was safety. Do you know if you back up into a post that you can have over $3,000 worth of damage? All that muscle and no brain in this little vehicle, okay? Okay, you know I love political cartoons, so I have to show you a couple. Let's start with this one here. My Republican friends might get a little irate over this, but when it comes to issues of guns and along that line, after Denver, shouldn't we think a little different? Colorado, I should say, about guns and that. Oh, I know they have the white Moses out there talking about how everybody needs a gun, okay? Let's think about it. All right, coming close to home. Close to home is something that I want to share with you is I got an award for Producer of the Year, Prolific Producer of the Year. That's pretty interesting. That means I must be churning out or doing something right. To all those people that tune in, thank you. All right. Another show that I'm going to talk about is a program focus on custody exchange. That should be probably the next call-in show. All right. And Riverside, they're still talking about the Tyisha Miller. All right. And bringing it close to home, if you don't have one of these, stop by City Hall and get one. It's information at your fingertips. You can't beat it. Monrovia is always a creative city doing something to make it a little bit easier for us residents. If you're wondering about the library, I just got a letter hot off the flash, and it says that the commission determined that the current library structure is not historic. So maybe they'll build a new building. Who knows? Still trying to get Bill Savage on to do a live show. All right. That's it. That's the news in my eyes, the way I see it. Well, I'm very honored to have the guest that's in the studio right now as I get out of focus for a moment and search for something. And what am I searching for? I'm searching for this Monrovia Weekly paper. And I was so moved by this article. And it started off like this here. Reading about the homeless woman who was killed by a policeman for threatening him with a screwdriver brought back memories of 24 years ago when I initiated the Meals on Wheels program. I was moved by that, and that was just the type version. So then, relentlessly, I went after this person. So I'm very honored to have this great historical person to be right here, that's live and looking good, Pat Ostry. How you doing today?
Fine, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here.
Oh, gee.
Okay, I will tell you, I was so moved by that article because so many times when people think of homeless people, they think of people with no faith. They just see this individual with a shopping cart and they don't associate them with maybe someone that had a family, that someone's daughter is a member of a family. So for you to touch on that made me feel good about you. So I had to have you come on the
Well,
show.
I thank you.
And you have to bear with me with all my massive organization that I
That's
have
fine,
here.
that's
Okay? Now, to the viewers out there, Pat Austri, you are a very integral part of Monrovia's history.
Well, I've been here a long time, since World War II, ancient history. I met my husband visiting in Monrovia during World War II. I was stationed most of the time in San Diego, and as I came back and forth, one of the times I met him, he was not in the service, but he lived here through a cousin of his who had come out from Cleveland. So I've been here ever since, and I don't know where all that time went, but...
Okay, now when you talk about World War II, for the young viewers out there, what was it like? We experienced a war in Kosovo. It wasn't a declared war, but it was a war. What's the difference to a young person trying to relate to what World War II was like that period of time?
Of course, I was in the waves, and I was stationed this side of the water,
Okay.
and in San Diego. So we didn't have the close contact with the actual war that maybe many women veterans, and men and women veterans here in Monrovia did have. However, it was something, and I went in '43 from Minneapolis. And it was, I can remember the day, of course, like many people my age, when war was declared. It was just Franklin Roosevelt, and it was just unheard of. The world stood still that day, couldn't believe it. So it was terrible, and he said that we would stay with it till it was over, and it took 4 years. So that was tough. And when it was over, and I happened to be stationed in San Diego, I had been married here in Monrovia in June, but I was still in the service. But by the time the war was over in August, they had declared that women with a year's service at least could muster out, because when we enlisted, you had to be in for the duration of the war.
Now, you also was a radio personality?
I went to, yes, I graduated from Beck School for Radio before that. And at the time that I became interested in joining the Navy, I was at KYSM in Mankato, Minnesota. And I was on the air 3 times a day.
And what was
and
your
wrote
subject
commercials. At noon I did the news for the commercials for the noon news. And in the morning I had a guest, woman, for some woman's interest. And in the afternoon, I don't really remember too much. It was concerning women, but it wasn't a guest. I was just on.
Okay, now that's quite interesting. That's somewhat of a trailblazer. Now, how popular was it for women to be on radio?
Well, I was the only one there at that time, and I did a lot of writing with it, and I was in charge of the music library, too. Okay. And so it was a pretty large station. My mother listened to me every day in Minneapolis, and it was 90 miles from there. So I don't know. Women, I know one thing, that the women that I came in contact with were crazy for TV, and I thought that was such a remote idea that I never did get interested. You know, I was
that's funny, like you're sitting here now.
I know it. I thought they're really dreaming.
Okay, what were some of the challenges as a woman on radio? Did you run into any?
No, I didn't really. I remember I had to be interviewed, and of course, a new face coming. I was young, and they were young, and a new face coming into this radio station gets everybody alerted.
Yes, yes.
And but everything went along fine.
Well, what made you pursue that?
I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but right out of high school, I decided to go to this big radio school in Minneapolis, and it was quite a long course. And we had graduation, and then they would do what they could.
Were there many other women
in the class? As I recall, there were just 2 other women.
Just 2 others?
And they really teach you everything.
Okay.
Just what to do and how to do it.
It was
very good.
You ever thought of having radio in Monrovia? Did that ever cross your mind?
No, I never did think about it. Yeah.
That was over. Once that chapter ended, you in?
Well, I went into the service after that, so that was kind of the end of the radio.
All right, for all those romantic types out there, tell us something about Mr. Austri, Peter Austri.
Oh, well,
what type of person he was?
He was a teacher in Clifton School here.
Oh, history.
Yeah, for many years. And he taught school for 25 years. He started out in San Gabriel Mission High, and then he came to Monrovia. He was taught altogether 25 years in Monrovia. He retired in 79, and he died in 88. But he was a writer also. I mean, that
So
was
y'all have something in common.
But I didn't mean also that I was a writer, but besides teaching, he was a writer.
Okay.
And he was quite a laid-back person, marvelous teacher. I still pass people on the street who tell me how much their children got out of him, his compassionate ways.
Okay. Now, what was it about him that attracted you to him? Because
I don't-
usually women pick the men. Men
Is
think
that
they
right?
pick the
Yeah.
women, but in the end,
I don't know. Who knows? But it was right
the
then.
chemistry was there.
Yes.
The chemistry was
And
right.
my own kids just think it was a terrible thing to think anybody would take such a chance because I met him in January and we were married in June.
Wow.
And they thought, who would ever, oh, my word.
But it worked out
It
quite
was-
well because you were
I
married
said,
how
I never
long?
changed my mind. 43 years.
43 years?
Uh-huh.
And a couple of children?
7, yes, a couple. Some days I thought maybe it was 10, but they were great. In my day, people didn't analyze things, I guess, as
Right,
much. You did what had to be done and didn't think about it.
Now, was Peter involved in politics?
Oh, yes. He was on the the city council from 58 to 68. And he was very interested in how he got involved with that. He was off at Christmas time, as teachers are, and picked up the paper one day and showed that on the ballot that right then in March would be a measure to eliminate the elected positions of city clerk and city treasurer. And he said, and he had majored in political science,
Okay.
even though his master's was in education. And so he said that they were always taught to hang on to as many elective offices as you can.
Right.
And that was so important to him. So he ran and he won. And he was comparatively unknown. We were not part of the social set in Monrovia.
Okay, which is probably was a little difficult at that period of time.
But
We won't
No
go
comment.
too deep into that. Okay, so once he was elected, what was it like then? I mean,
Yeah.
it's one thing to ask for a job or seek a job, and then you get the job.
he just took to it like a duck to water.
Okay, he was
Because-
in
and
his
he-
element.
And he was probably, even the newspaper said that he was the best educated in politics
Okay.
before he was elected. And because of a lot of people, it's just learn as you go.
Yes.
But since he had such 4 years in political science, he knew what could be
Right.
and what shouldn't be and that sort of thing.
So it wasn't unfamiliar territory
no,
to him.
not really. And he was very good.
All right, so what was the political times like back in that period?
Well, there was
Such as what were some of the issues?
I don't recall too much. They built the one thing that the police station was a big item because a new police station came in that day, and they've redone it twice maybe since then, and that happened around in the 60s. Another big thing that had taken place in the early 50s, tearing down practically everything, the
yeah,
Carnegie Library and the big city hall on the corner of Palm and Myrtle, and so
Which
that
would be a
was.
landmark today if it was
Yes,
still around.
if everybody were a little more far-sighted, that could have been a nice museum, too.
Yes, yes.
And I remember we used to go in there to pay our water bills, and the council met upstairs. So, and it was very hard to knock it down.
Yeah.
They sold the bricks.
Granted.
And they, so different people who were running to buy them, so they would work them into their fireplaces.
Okay. Now, what's your take? I know right now as we speak, the library task force is evaluating on what to do with the library. Well, now we know it's not labeled a historical building.
I don't know how anyone ever thought it could be.
No.
Just isn't.
But the first one was quite nice.
Oh, the Carnegie Library was something else. And I don't know of any other Carnegie Library that has ever been torn down.
What,
So it was a
who
little.
was giving the folks the okay to do all this tearing down?
Well, I don't know. That was before our time.
Okay, I thought I would open up the book and show the viewers out there what the Carnegie Library was like. As they rushed to the camera, maybe they could focus on that.
And there used to be a fountain in the front. I don't see, just there now. when we would go in, it was a little bit gloomy inside for the children. That was the only thing.
Okay.
I take the kids in to go to the children's section, and you go up those steps, you know, it's kind of gloomy in there, and go to the left, and there was the children's department.
Okay, am I straight? Uh-oh. Yes, I'm straight. All right. Another question. Now, how did you get involved into politics?
Of course, I wasn't completely, I was not well versed on anything, but kind of vicariously, I had had enough exposure through my husband,
Okay.
having been on there 10 years. So one day in '74, I received a phone call, and unknown to me, they were trying to put together this group for better government.
Coalition.
And I might mention the reason for all of this was Myrtle Avenue was just a ghost town.
Yes.
And so they needed something beside the status quo. So I got this telephone call asking me would I run with Bob Bartlett and Eric Faith. And I said, gee, I really hadn't had any experience. Well, think about it and let me know by 10 tomorrow. So we did all
Okay.
that.
Quick decision.
Did all that
Now,
thinking.
by now, your husband had passed away.
No,
Or he was still
no,
alive?
he was still alive. Yeah,
Okay.
because that was '74,
Okay, what was his take on it?
and he thought it was great.
Go
He said-
for it.
Yeah, he just definitely. So the only reason I think I had enough courage to consider it was because I knew that he was a fountain of information. That it wouldn't be that I was stranded out there all by myself.
Okay.
So they had meetings, and of course, the first question that the committee wanted to know was, did Pete and I have any skeletons in the closet?
Appropriate
Well,
for entering
we-
in the
we could,
political
yeah.
arena, even back then. Huh?
Right. We couldn't think of anything. So anyhow, and it was great. It was a really exciting campaign. But for instance, we went as a team,
Okay.
and the three of us, and we had 20 in the month of February alone. We had 25 coffee hours, and then we used the old Lyric Theater marquee.
Yes.
And my young son, who was 12 at the time, and Bob's stepfather changed the signs with our logo, our ideas on it
Okay.
every week.
And at that time, Foothill was a very busy city,
Yes,
right?
it was.
So you got a lot of
We had a lot of mileage out of that.
yes.
And then it
What
got,
did
it got so
What did the
everybody.
opposition think about that?
Well, they were pretty cruel.
Okay.
The truth of it.
Well,
You like to think that it's a friendly sort of campaigning.
yes, yes.
Even
But it
though-
never is.
But with the rumors around town were, if they let those three get in,
He'll never be the same.
they will fire the city manager, and they'll fire. We'd have the majority, and everybody was going to be fired, and the people should beware, and
But it didn't happen.
the
that
city
way.
hall's still standing.
Yes, and doing quite well.
Yes,
I
so-
should say.
Well, we think we did a great job because it was just at the time of the redevelopment, the
Okay.
beginning of redevelopment.
Okay.
And at that time, Huntington, not only Foothill and Myrtle, but Huntington
Oh
was
yes, yes.
a
yes.
disaster.
Blight area. Blight area.
So-
Now, how did you celebrate that day?
Well, I don't remember too much. We gathered and had some goodies, but the next thing was now we can't make any mistakes. And of course, a big thing, you're elected on one Tuesday, and by the following Tuesday, you have to be sworn in and have decided who your mayor is going to be.
Okay.
And at that time, until I was my mayor in '78, the 5 council people decided among them who would be the mayor.
All right, now why don't you explain to the young viewers out there what is the role of the mayor in the city of Monrovia? Because a lot of people get confused with the mayor, city manager, mayor pro tem.
The government, Monrovia city government, is city manager type of government. The mayor has no more influence than any other council member, just one vote. No veto power.
Okay.
And it is a little more than ceremonial, though, because a lot of the mayor, who also acts as the chairman of the redevelopment agency, has to do a lot of thinking. And wonderful thing about Monrovia is the staff is great. And even in my day, the staff was really great.
Now, you were elected mayor in
I was elected.
in a vote.
Yes, I was the first elected mayor, and that was in '78.
Now, who did you run against?
There was a gentleman, was it Powers? I think his name was Powers. I'm not sure. And he was a real Chicago type politician who had a little property on
Okay.
Myrtle Avenue, and just thought, there's no way this woman is going to do this. Unfortunately for him, he'd never done a thing in Monrovia and had contributed nothing to the community.
Oh, okay.
So that way, I think, without even knowing anything
So did
about
you
it, they
hammer it?
resented. So yes, we really. And then there was another write-in also.
Okay.
And the two of them spent more than 3 times what I spent. I don't really remember what I spent now.
But that's got to be pretty.
But it
hats
was-
off to Monrovia
Yeah, it
for
was-
them to be progressive enough to elect a woman for mayor.
Well, at that time, less than 2% of the legislators were women in the country. So that was a really big thing. But one encouraging thing was in the Wall Street Journal one day when all this was going on, they said this year incumbents are out and women are in. So we had hope for that. And then 3 women made it, Glendora and I'm not sure if it was Rosemead or someplace down in that area, and I. So they had a big spread in the LA Times about the 3 of us because
Now,
it was unusual.
What's your take on that now, looking at it now
Well,
in
now-
1999?
Yeah, it's very common.
Do you-
And at one time, we had a majority here when Mary Wilcox was still alive on the Monrovia City Council, but now it's back to 1 woman.
Now, who are some of the women that
Laura.
influenced you?
I can't think of anybody in particular that actually influenced me. When I first went on, it was a big thing, and there was a statewide committee called CEWAR, CEWAR, and I don't remember just how it worked, but it was
Okay.
elected women
Okay.
in the state. And so there were only about 15 of us originally, charter members of that. Now there are hundreds. But I think that we kind of helped each other and had ideas. And because everybody wasn't, I will say this though about Monrovia. I don't think that was ever an issue in Monrovia, the women part of it. Because it just seemed as if even when the Times had quite an article that Monrovia, a city run by women,
Okay.
and there were 8 of us that held all the key positions
Okay.
in Monrovia at that time. So but in Monrovia itself, because that was not the reason, because women made a big effort to do that. It just happened, and we were all community minded. So when I was running, I don't think that people in Monrovia stopped to weigh what, man or woman. It was
Right.
just what your qualifications were.
Based on that.
Now, this newspaper did not endorse me, even though they were pretty
Yeah.
friendly. And the reason they stated was because I was too people-oriented.
Oh, that's a crime to be in politics and be
So,
too people oriented.
They didn't think I could handle anything else.
You think that's missing from government now? A lack of people in office really concerned about the average person.
It depends. I think people in Monrovia are, and it's hard to say. Depends upon how high up you want to go, I presume.
Okay. What do you think about women in politics? Do you think we ever have a woman in the White House?
Oh, I think so. I think so because, gradually we're getting there. The reason I think so is because look at the rest of the world. Look at all the women that have been running countries and think that people don't think anything of it.
Right. No.
And I think that Madeleine Albright has certainly shown that she's as capable as anybody else in her position. So I think they're getting used to it.
Okay, well, I wouldn't be a good host of a show if I didn't bring up Hillary Clinton and her political aspirations. You think there's a possibility that she'll either be senator or who knows? I don't know.
I don't know. It's hard to say, and it's going to be a close race if Giuliani is the one, I'm sure, because he's been popular mayor. It's hard to say, but she's certainly. I don't think there is anybody any more intelligent than she is.
I'm surprised she didn't run out of Illinois.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course,
Something-
she hasn't been there in a long time either.
I haven't been in New York.
Yeah, but that seems to be kind of a different playing field.
Okay, let's bring it back home to Monrovia. Let's talk about the Meals on Wheels program
Oh, yes.
that you.
Well, when referring to that column, it's just amazing. When three of my campaign promises were Meals on Wheels, the senior nutrition program, and Dial-A-Ride, and I managed all three of them. There were two. Roger Ferguson was on the council at the same time as I was, and so was Dick Mountjoy. And I remember Roger Ferguson was kind of relaxed person and didn't get too
riled up.
riled up about anything. But he wasn't a bit interested in these programs of mine. But then when he found out that I was definitely going to do it, he was very helpful, and especially with Dial-A-Ride. And we started out with a cab company, taxi company in El Monte, who used to come up and take care of it. And then gradually it worked into the community services department, and Dutzen got involved after a few years.
So explain what basically is Dial-A-Ride.
Dial-A-Ride, it's from door to door, from your door to wherever you're going. And so that was a very new idea that was becoming prevalent in some of places like Pasadena. And I don't know just how much around this way. So we contracted, and the people would call the certain number, and I can't remember how much it was at that time, but very minimal, 75 cents maybe, something like that.
So now you look at Dial-A-Ride in a nice
it's wonderful.
van, and I can recall doing a little news blurb on Dial-A-Ride, not knowing that you played an integral role in it.
That's how we got started. And then, of course, there was Meals on Wheels, and I definitely was going to determine that we should have Meals on Wheels, because there are so many people out there that would have to go to a nursing home if they couldn't have Meals on Wheels. So I contacted a gentleman from the Salvation Army in Pomona. He was kind of the area spokesperson for Meals on Wheels and how to do it. And then I was at a chamber meeting one day with Lou Petrie, whose family owned the Monrovia Hospital at that time, and asked him if we could get this going, would he do the meals from the hospital? And so to this day, they have never stopped. And that was 24 years ago. And they package them and have a place for the ovens. Kiwanis bought all the equipment for us. And then I had to do all of scheduling and everything myself, the routes, and getting volunteers to do the delivering. Now it's spread out. We have a woman in there young woman who takes care of Sherry, and is the coordinator. But the hospital has just been, I can't believe it, because even when I tried to help Duarte get going on one through the City of Hope, it lasted 2 weeks. And you think any place as big as City of Hope, a few meals wouldn't matter.
Maybe too big.
Yeah, that probably is it. But they have 2 routes going now, and there could be 3. And it was really great how everybody was interested in the city. And we had the Key Club at the high school used to deliver on Fridays. And then we had Methodist Hospital would take a week and take care of all of, they would even schedule their own people to do the driving for 1 week a month. And so there was a lot. It's a little harder now, because many of these people who were doing it then, of course, have gotten older, like I have. And so it made a difference. But anyhow, we still have Meals on Wheels. And then we also have the SNAP program. This, they call it, I made a couple of notes here because it has changed. It was called SNAP, which was, in my day, Seniors Nutrition and Activity Program.
Okay.
And we started out with it right in a building right here on Ivy, over on Ivy. And it has moved around a few times, but it's now at St. Luke's. It's a federally funded program. And I remember the congressman at that time said he'd fight me all the way on this. I said, go ahead, but we got it.
Okay.
And because it is federally funded. And at St. Luke's Lutheran Church on Foothill is where, I think it's called St. Paul's Lutheran Church.
Okay.
And it's now called Intervale, but it's the same idea. And they suggest anybody can go in there, and it's also an activity program as well as a good lunch meal. and they suggest $1.50 donation, and there's an envelope there for everybody. And if you put anything in it, okay, and if you don't, that's okay.
Okay.
You don't have
No, I know some of the viewers out there are probably wondering, where did you get this great humanitarian spirit from?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it's something you're born with.
Well, some people.
But I don't know.
I know
I
someone
don't
must have
know.
nurtured for you or something
Yeah,
along
yeah.
that line. To be concerned about the other person is a
Yeah.
rarity in our society.
Oh, I never thought about it one way or the other. And having 7 children of my own probably makes a difference. You know?
Knowing the understanding of need.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
people-
yeah, there's nothing worse than the thought of somebody, and when you think of people having to go into nursing homes only because they can't take care of themselves
Right,
as
right.
far as fixing their meals, most of the time, people who are homebound and their families can do something on the weekend, but during the week, if they're working, this is when they need the Meals on Wheels.
All right, now some of the viewers
You
out
never
there
know
listen,
when-
you never
yeah.
know. What do you think needs to happen to get young people more involved in being volunteers? Well, what do you think is needed?
Well, one thing that'll happen is that most of the high schools are making it mandatory for high school graduation. There are several, even in LA County, that they have to have at least 100 hours, and some of them are even 200 hours before they graduate. And I have talked to the high school a few years back, and a couple of times, about the Meals on Wheels and driving for, and it's very hard for some of the young people to figure you do this for nothing,
Yeah.
you know? So I think maybe sometimes that feeling has to come from home,
Yes.
that you want to help somebody.
Well, my idea running in my brain about posting the 10 Commandments in the high school. I mean, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on that? If someone asks you a question, what do you think about posting the 10 Commandments in the high school?
Well, I don't think that, first of all, there are several different versions of the 10 Commandments.
Right.
So that would be dangerous, stepping on somebody's toes. And secondly, I think that anybody who's interested, for instance, they were doing this instead of the gun control,
Yes.
anybody who's interested in the violence isn't going to pay a bit of attention
That's right.
to the 10 Commandments up there on the wall. So I think that, no, I don't think that's a good idea.
I think all things start at home.
Yes.
If things are
definitely, yeah,
emphasized at
right.
home, a lot of things change. All right, to the viewers out there, this is a live show. If you'd like to call in and speak to Pat Ostry, City Treasurer,
I'm city treasurer now.
still involved in.
Yes, I've held all of the elective offices now.
You've had them all.
Can't get rid of me.
Now the humanitarian spirit is just there.
know, well-
that energy is still there.
I think that
How do you nurture the drive?
I do a lot. I travel a lot. And I've done a lot of things, and I have a lot of friends in Monrovia, and we get together. Eating is the biggest thing. I think.
Well, I think
Out to lunch and so forth.
someone told me once that at our age of time, if you can't eat it or wear it, don't bring it to
Yeah.
me, okay?
I'm still involved with the museum, and I take the children from the schools on the tours of the museum,
Okay.
and that's always fun. And it's really interesting because, and the teachers have everything so well organized. When they told me that 120 were coming on the same day from Mayflower and walking, and you know how far it is from
Yes,
Mayflower
yes,
to the
yes.
museum. And so Louise Osbrink helped, and we divided them up, 60 outside and 60 in, 30 on each side when they're in,
yeah.
and so forth. But the teachers had everything well
But you
planned.
have a lot of grandchildren too, right?
I have only 5. I have 7 children.
Okay.
3 are married, and I have 5 grandchildren.
All right, that's enough, right?
So yeah. Well, when it comes to Christmas, I'm just very happy.
Okay, let me ask you, the column that appears in the Monrovia Weekly,
Right.
you bang out that article every week or what?
Oh,
What
yeah, that's yes, every week. I've had, and then I was in the Foothill papers when it was Foothill, and then when it was connected with Arcadia, I can't remember what it was called, the Journal, I think, at that time. Anyhow, for about 20 years, I've always had a column someplace.
Well, why did you stay in local politics, and why didn't you go like to the next level?
No, I probably have put a lot of it, if I wanted to do that sort of thing, in quota.
Oh, okay. Tell us about quota.
Because that is an international, I want to say women's organization comes so naturally, but it is a women's organization primarily. However, it's like Kiwanis and Rotary,
Yes.
and the main philanthropy is aid to the hearing and speech impaired
Okay.
and abused women and children, and then they emphasize very much the community involvement in your own community.
Now, how does someone join that?
They just call anybody who's a quotarian and tell them they'd like to, and we'd love to get everybody to join. It covers, there are over 8,000 members, and it's international, so there are 13 countries. I'm, for a second time, I'm the district governor of the 25th district.
Which means?
Which is all in this area. From normally it would be from Santa Barbara to San Diego, but we don't have all the same clubs we used to have. And it's wonderful. And I'm going to the International Convention in Boston in the middle of this month.
Okay.
And it's amazing how much they do. Just let me tell you speaking of humanitarianism, in 1998, 1,257,000 was spent to improve the lives of people in need. 30,000 in matching grants for fellowships. That's wonderful to Gallaudet College and to Northridge. Not only people who are deaf, but also people whose parents are deaf.
Oh.
And they give them scholarships.
Sort of the unknown population. People don't talk about people with hearing impairment.
I know it. It's amazing. It's amazing how much you learn about it through belonging to Quota.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6,000 was spent on youth outreach. We realized that that's where it starts. 40,000 just for World Service programs. So each one of our clubs, our own club, has really large programs and contributes a lot to maybe 12 organizations in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And besides the scholarships, and very often the international will match if you have $500 you want to put maybe a scholarship for some young girl or boy, they will match it. And so it's been really great.
Okay, so someone very much involved in the political arena, when you gaze into your crystal ball and look at Monrovia, what do you see? What do you envision in a sense? Or what would you like to see down the road?
Well, I don't know. I think that the library situation, which is going on right now, is very important.
Yes.
And I think that it would be good to have maybe storefront library in the south end of town, where it's a little more accessible maybe to people who don't drive, that sort of thing. And but Monrovia is really doing so great, and we're such an example to the rest of the state, I think, that I'm sure that things will keep on going. Rod Gunn was city manager when we really went after the redevelopment, and Bud Overham, who is now Burbank city manager, was our city manager. And all these young men who were knowledgeable to begin with and had enough courage to push for these things. Sometimes the city councils won't listen to the staff who are the ones who know how to do it. And but we did. And I think that the city council was so brilliant. It was just that we allowed the ones who knew how to do it and
let
what
them
to
do their job.
Let them do it. Because it was really frightening when we first decided the Mervyn Center and all there.
Yeah.
That was a case of relocating 400 parcels. And I mean, that was gruesome thought to think. And it was kind of the first really drastic thing that was going on in the redevelopment line. But it worked out. There was only one person who came to the council objecting. I remember through all those hearings. And she was a renter. And she was just somebody who fomented trouble anyhow.
That was relocating 400 families in a sense, right?
Mostly, all families.
And now it's a showcase for many communities
I
to
know.
probably come by and
Just
look at the
making
progress.
that first. And then there was where the school district is right now, there was, I can't remember what it was called originally, Penlight or something like that was the very first one way back 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, who decided to take a chance on Huntington, and then kind of grew. And then Smart and Final redid their store, and it took a long time though for the school district to decide that they would also build in that area.
Okay, now as a mother and a grandmother, and what do you think is some of the issues facing young people, particularly here in Monrovia, if no place else?
Well, I don't know. Education is, of course it should be, and I'm sure it is the biggest issue, and it has become so expensive that I know that all of mine, I'm glad I don't have younger ones to worry about now, even though the grandchildren. But I think education is a big thing. I don't know what, one thing I do think is that as everything is progressing and as campaigns are so expensive and the scrutinizing and digging into every phase of a person's life keeps the really intelligent people from wanting to run because they figure, I don't need that.
Right.
And so I think that will be a problem although I guess there are enough people with ego that
Ego and money.
will keep running. Yeah.
Because the money,
When my husband,
barometer has
yeah.
lifted.
Oh.
I think the city council, city of Monrovia, roughly, when I looked over the records, roughly for city council, maybe $12,000.
I can't remember exactly, because the three of us ran together the first time. And then when I ran for mayor, of course I was by myself, but I can't remember too much. But I know when my husband ran, and that was in '58, it cost him $34 because
Those were the days.
Yeah, all he did was have cards, and then he went door to door, and he'd leave them. And he really did the door to door, and that made a big difference. And then he was a teacher besides. And
Yes.
he was
Strong
exposed to the
influence
people.
educator.
Yeah.
Now,
So and
now,
he knew a lot of people.
why do you think there's so much apathy with people overall?
Well, young people today have so many other weekend things to do, and it isn't so. Everything is accessible to young people, and they go to the river or they go to the desert, and I think that they just don't take an interest in doing anything else outside of their family. I don't know what the answer is to it. It's I don't know.
I mean, because if we don't nurture young leadership to come up through the ranks, then all of a sudden we have people with absolute power, and that's always so frightening because
Really,
then there's no way to get them out because once they're in, they're just in.
I know it, and it is true. I ran. I'm a Democrat, and I think most people in Monrovia know that. And
You don't bite your tongue in saying it.
and no, heavens no. And I ran against Bud Collier. Well, this is a Republican stronghold,
Yeah.
in spite of the fact that the registration's about evenly divided now. But the Democrats are not known for getting out the vote,
Yes.
as the Republicans are. So I ran against Bud Collier, and of course he was an institution, so that was unusual for anybody to run against him for the assembly. But I remember 36% of the vote I did get, which was considered decent, but in the stronghold. But as you say, once they get in there, they're there to stay,
Do you think people are more?
and it won't. You can't shake them.
Do you think people are more educated then? They really took serious who's running and what is their platform, and this is what they're about. Now it's like the hype and the glitz, and you go for that. And
Yeah. I don't know. I remember I used to have to get up and go to Sears in the morning to catch all the employees. They would let you come in and give your 2 cents worth about the election
yes,
and things like that because it was the assembly. And he never showed up for anything. He didn't need to because he was such a fixture in the assembly. So I don't know.
so how do we fix that problem?
Yeah,
A
well.
wise one. I mean, you must have something inside the mind that says,
No, well, you have to, it depends upon your area. I mean, you have to take that into consideration, whatever you're doing. And it's, I think that, as you mentioned too, that you have to start them young. And now, having been exposed to all of us with campaigning, not one of mine is interested. No.
why were you away from the family that much? Were you too
No,
busy,
I don't think
or-
it was they can just see how involved it is. And you get crucified along the way. So,
Oh yes,
you
they got
know,
yes.
you know,
You can't win.
and they don't want to. They
you know,
wouldn't want to go through that.
Then you don't have any privacy.
So no, that's true. And I guess that some of them figure that it's, now I have a daughter who is single in San Diego, and she's project manager for redevelopment in San Diego. And she loves that.
Okay.
But she in no way
She don't want the front line.
No way would she run for any political office.
That's sort of scary.
I know.
America's built on.
Yeah. But then there are others who just love that. So I don't think, we probably don't have to worry about it.
But they might be the wrong types. I'm not.
Yeah. Who knows?
All right, I have to, before the show ends or anything like this, I want to talk about this book that was put together by your husband.
Yes, he did. He wrote it. Mm-hmm.
Love this book with a passion because
Yeah.
it tells so much
It really does.
about the history of Monrovia.
Mm-hmm. And he made it very interesting in the pictures, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It was something, it took him 4 years. And pretty soon it was, the deadline was 6 months, and pretty soon it was down to 2 weeks. And he had the responsibility of arranging the pictures.
Okay.
Nobody else would take, or could, or that's the way it was supposed to be. So I remember our dining room table had all these pictures, photographs spread out.
Now, where did the
while he
pictures
was
come
trying-
from?
Well, all over. Most of them,
over?
most of them tell where they came from.
Okay.
And
Hitchcock.
Hotchkiss.
Yeah, Hotchkiss.
Hotchkiss.
Okay.
He was historian at that time. A lot came from him. Maureen, the one that I told you in San Diego, is quite a photographer, and she took different pictures for him of churches and schools, places like that. Aztec Hotel for newer ones. For the Monrovia, for the Women's Club, we went into Los Angeles, to the library in Los Angeles, because there was nobody around here who had a picture of the Women's Club.
Now, your husband was very remarkable because in this book it covers on the diversity
Yes.
of Monrovia.
Yeah.
It's not just painted one way.
And
And I thought that
right.
was remarkable and very
Yeah.
special
Yeah.
in
he's-
many ways. Even a young person that ran for mayor once, Cardwell, the first guy, I think he ran on a campaign that they should remove all no colors allowed in the stores in downtown Monrovia.
Yeah.
Unreal. He put it in the book.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
that's really putting history
Well, that's
there.
history, right?
That's history. You know?
There were worse things than that going on, too.
Yeah. Now, if someone wanted to find this book, where'd they find it at?
Well, a museum, they sell them at the museum.
Okay.
$5 now for the
All
book.
right. Okay. And it's been selling pretty good?
Yes, it always has.
But-
At the time, of course, it came out in '85, and that
Okay.
was just before the centennial, and that was a big thing. So the biggest boost
They made
right there.
the
Yeah.
deadline and
Yeah,
everything,
yes.
huh?
And now it's amazing how many young people come or people moving into Monrovia.
Yes.
Then they see it. Oh, and
I
so
want
now
to
it's-
find out
yeah.
about what's the history of this town.
And at one time, I can't remember if we're still doing it, the realtors were buying at a reduced rate so that they could give them to their customers, their
That's
clients.
interesting. So when people buy a house,
Yeah.
they got a little history that
History of
goes with
Monrovia.
it.
Mhm.
Okay, now what's your plans for the summertime? Would you like
Well,
to share that with us?
I'm going to Boston in July,
Okay.
and so that will be interesting. And no, I have no other plans right now. I was in San Diego last weekend, and I will be going up. I have these children around different places, so
Okay.
I always go to see them at one time. I'll be going up to San Luis Obispo. I have a son and his wife and two little girls in Los Osos, really. And then I have a family in Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado.
Now, how long is the term for city treasurer?
4 years.
4 years.
And because of the change of the primaries in the state, they had to extend it. So this term was 5, and I'm up in 2001.
All right. Do you want to put it out there? Do you plan to run again?
Well, I don't know whether the city would go for that, but we'll see what happens when the time comes. It's a wonderful. I feel as if I still have my faculties. But
Okay. Okay. Well, you're a beautiful individual. I'm
Well,
glad you
thank
made
you.
it here to the show.
well, I really enjoyed it, and this is such a great town.
Yes.
Monrovia is just so
Yes,
great.
it is.
And that's the thing too that I felt. I had quite an article in State magazine for the city government. I can't remember what they call it now. But the unusual thing about Monrovia is there are 5 generations now, and every minority and not minority. Everybody always has worked together. The churches have always worked together, and the churches and the schools and the city government and the chamber have always worked together. And that's unusual. A lot of cities, they don't.
I think maybe primarily because of the size. It's just the
Yeah,
right
well,
size.
the fact that it's concentrated in 14 square miles, too,
Right.
that makes a difference.
It's the only place you can be late and be early.
Yeah, right. Because even Arcadia is so spread out,
Yes.
and El Monte is spread out. San Gabriel probably is closest to the type of city as Monrovia is.
Okay, they tell me the hands of time has moved very rapidly. Time to wrap up the show known as Talk TV. I hope you, the viewers out there, enjoyed it. And if you ever see Pat Ostry on the street, make sure you say thank you for doing such a grand job.
Well, thank
And keep
you.
it up, too,
Thank you
okay?
very much. I
All
enjoyed
right.
it.